Welcome to episode 1 of our very own podcast, The Main Street Exchange, where we dive deep into the wins, maybe even the struggles of small businesses in small town America, which is a rich and powerful community across all 50 states. And we're in Farmington, New Mexico, a small town in northern New Mexico, right on the border of southern Colorado. And so, but we intend for tons of people to be able to listen to this podcast or watch it on YouTube. But I'm Stephen Mirabal, and we're going to learn a little bit about my story today, as well as
Micah Robinson. And yeah, we were just talking about how we've been in marketing for a while, and you've been in it for how long?
16 plus years.
16 plus years, yeah. So,
yep.
And I started my first website I created was in 1998, but I had been doing graphic design a little bit.
So tell us about that. Are we talking HTML? Was there CSS?
Oh, it was a different world. It was a different world. There was a product called Microsoft FrontPage back then, which was an atrocious program. Yeah. But that was like the first WYSIWYG. You know, what you see is what you get.
WYSIWYG.
Yeah, that was like was like a big word back then,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
and so yeah, that was
which means
compared
what?
To now.
So if you're editing a website,
right, it's kind of the first Wix, right? You know, like
okay.
you see what you're editing, but they were atrocious. They had like tables upon tables upon tables when you got done with the HTML. So like anyone like that was genuine, they were out of that real quick because you're like when you tried to edit anything,
it was really limited. And it's stacked really poorly. Like you couldn't align left or align right.
Yeah.
Okay,
we've come a long way.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and we're starting to talk nerd talk. But I think for the most part, really diving into the backbone of our country and the small businesses that so courageously do business in those small towns. But we're going to kind of dial it back and go back in time and
just on that point, I think the reason we chose the name Main Street Exchange,
maybe we should
is really a little bit like in regards to that, because we want this to be an exchange of knowledge, an exchange of even marketing. There's an exchange. There's an exchange of value, an exchange of communication, and the word marketing gets so caught up in this idea that feels very, very broad, very big, defined differently by everyone. Yep, but really, if you want to take it down to its core, there's an exchange of communication, exchange of information that allows people, right, to connect with your product or service.
Yep.
And when you get down to that basic, you can really start to change the value of how people look at marketing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, I think being able to unveil the mystery of marketing,
pull back the curtain.
Yeah, and it's really goes back to the idea of what am I saying?
Yes.
Not that because we won't have a business anymore if we dial it down. But really, the idea is what am I saying, and what is my target audience hearing?
Right.
And
are they even hearing?
Are they even
getting your message?
Do they even know you exist?
Right.
And really going down that road, I think, is important for a lot of small businesses to understand and feel it. And we're not saying all of the answers are easy by any stretch of the imagination. You're probably tapping into this podcast because you want to learn more and you want to dive deeper into what marketing is, what digital marketing is, and how you can make your small business better. And we hope we can help with some of those things.
That really is our goal.
And so, let's see where this thing goes.
Yeah.
Episode 1. I don't think they do seasons anymore. I think it's just episode 1 to whatever. You keep on going, which is fine with me.
Which is, that lets go of that disappointment that you get when you get on a good show. And then you get to like season 2, and then you find out there's no more seasons being made.
Right.
It's like really disappointing. So we won't ever disappoint anyone. This could be the first or the last episode. You never know.
Man, yeah. I know that that the amount of things that I would love to say and really make it as personal as possible. I think what's a snooze fest is, hopping into a podcast and it's so formalized and it's like, okay, I get it. This guy's trying to plug his book or something like that, but I really want it to be open about every facet of our life. I'm a man of faith. I know you are.
As am I. Yes.
And we got kids, we have lovely wives, and to be able to share those, even some of that stuff with you guys that are close, near and dear to us.
Yeah, make sure we don't get in trouble. That's the caveat
right?
to that.
Right? I told Brett you can't watch this podcast, man. But she'll probably watch it anyway. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about both of our beginnings and what really inspired that, our steps to move in this direction. So
I'll let you go first.
Well, we've been friends for a bit.
We've known each other for a long time.
We've known each other for a long time. But then you go, what? You played soccer? What? You did this or that? I know that. Like, we'll be meeting with clients or hanging out, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I was the star of that play or whatever." Like, what did you do before we did this?
Right. There's a whole lot of life before our friendship. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole lot of life, and so a little bit about me. So born in Las Cruces, New Mexico, small little town, southern. Well, yeah,
it's not small anymore.
Not small anymore. And was raised a little bit in Orange County, California. Then we're in a town called Farmington that's had boom and bust in the oil field. And so my dad brought us out here with a company called Safety Clean back in the day. And I always knew from an early age, man, I just loved people. I love people. I love being able to invest in people, see what, and I can even recall just being a young guy, just always wanting to know something, just always like, oh my gosh, that person can play the piano. I want to learn. That person can play the guitar. I want to learn. That person can sing. I want to learn. And I wasn't really necessarily naturally. I always forget talent, skill. Which one is the one that you're born with, and which is the one that you have to learn? Do you remember?
Talent is the one you're born with. Skill is the one you have to learn.
Okay, so I wasn't really ever talented. People would argue with me on that, but my talent was really people.
Sure.
Really. And my skill has been developed over years, like with music or like with marketing and stuff like that. So I can recall even from a young age being that little guy that was always annoying people about, why do you do that? Why do you do that? What? Just super curious. In fact, my youngest, my fourth, Hosea, he's showing those same traits.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? And
over questioning.
Yeah. And I always wondered, like, my mom would be like, "Stop asking me questions.
Right.
Stop it." And when I was a kid, I would be so hurt. Love you, Mom, if you're watching. You did a great job raising me. But I think hearing that, I was just so curious, and so hearing Jose, he'll do the same thing. He'll be like, why does that happen? Why how does this work in the world? And just so curious, and everything you say, he's just soking in.
Yeah, it just leads to another question.
Yeah,
that's the forever
that's
question.
Little Steven. Jose is little Steven, and so being able to see that, and you kind of see yourself in your kids too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so that continued. We that curiosity, that love for people, and fast forward a bit. Just jumping into when I met my lovely wife, we had kids young, I'm 37 and we already have a 16-year-old who's dating.
Scary, to say the least.
Right. And so
driving and dating, that's like
dating,
the double whammy.
Double whammy, dude. And so yeah, just fast forwarding a bit, but looking at when we got married, income was really low. I remember just like our first year of marriage, I think we brought home like $12,000 together.
Oh yeah, I've had a couple of those years where you just wonder how you even made
go
it.
Back, what did we do? How did we eat? Like, how cheap was gas back then, you know? And so it was just like, walking through those seasons, and you're just like, what can I do to make money? And I think that's when the hustler kind of in me really began to stir.
Yeah.
And so we're like, we knew some people in Nashville with some camera equipment. They were doing really good. And so I called them up. I was like, dude, I don't have a lot of money. Tell me the most important thing to get. Okay. And he goes, glass. And I went, dude, come on, bro. What do you mean by that? It was one of the best advice I've ever got because it really made my path down technical media and understanding technical media. Because
which is really a defining point for you in a lot of ways. I mean, as a media person,
yeah,
like there's very few people I've met that are as technical as you. Like,
yeah. I think the my fellow employees would agree too. Maybe
annoyingly technical,
but is just the fact of him saying glass. It made me start turning my head like, what does he mean by that? And so I called him back. I was like, bro, I get you mean lenses. I understand that. But I think I had like $3,000 to spend. He goes, okay, buy the cheapest crop sensor DSLR you could find, but buy the most expensive glass you can get. And everything will be fine.
We'll come together.
It'll all come together. And so, yeah, we did that. We got an 85 1.2 L lens. We still have it. Our studio still uses it.
Oh, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's an incredible lens. We still have it. We've gone through several camera bodies, and we still have that lens. And so that took the journey down. Photography and web development pretty much started at the same time. Yeah. And I remember we can nerd out on this all day, so we need to be careful here. Yes. But I remember making my first site on an old e-commerce open source called OS Commerce, and it was a PHP code. It's how I learned PHP. Oh yeah, and
you're like a hack, right? You don't really know it. You just learned how to hack it. Like
you learned how to hack it
because that's what you had to do.
Yeah, and thankfully back then there was a plugin called Firebug, and it was a developer tool
on Firefox. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and
F12
Firebug taught me how to create websites. Honestly,
yeah,
because you can imagine it and then try and create it. Because in Firebug you got to like test out visuals and stuff
immediately.
And so I remember making OS commerce sites for people, and so that they can sell their products online, and learning how to use like verification tokens off PayPal and getting all that stuff. Man, it was so much fun. And so that's where that marketing side started at the same time as my media development.
Now, with that, were you kind of like me? Were you kind of getting paid to learn? Like, you like that the client was like, I need this. And you're like, yeah, I got this.
I can do that. You're like, oh my gosh.
So you're like 24 hours in and like scared to heck that you're not even going to be able to finish the thing,
You're like, that was one product. Okay, here we go.
It's like the awful learning curve, but it's the necessary one, right?
Yep, totally. And so I think, going down that trail, a desire to make a little bit more money for my family, learning the technical nature of media, you suddenly begin to say, okay, I'm telling a story to communities.
Yeah.
And it's in my best interest to coach my client on how to use this stuff.
Right.
And so that's where the marketing consultancy came in, as just like, now you're giving advice. Now you're telling, hey, this is what you should do. And then a couple years after that, I started getting into, search engine optimization.
Yeah.
On Google, and I started seeing businesses transform.
Yeah.
In a matter of months. And I thought, wow,
I could make a difference.
Could really make a difference. So that's my journey. And of course, dozens of cameras later, dozens of lenses later, dozens of websites later, dozens of marketing campaigns later, we now have 10 employees running a company called Zia Media Group as we enter the marketing world. And really, after I started building all those e-commerce sites and talking to clients and getting invigorated, then I was like, wow, I should actually charge. Right. I mean, if you remember back in the day, like people were like, $100 for a logo, really? Can't my nephew do this for $5 or something?
It was Nike like that played like $200 or something for their logo. Wasn't it? It was like super cheap. Like, the most iconic logo in history.
Yep. I talked to the guy who was on the team who was on the Kmart rollout. Okay. Back in the late 90s. Yeah. And he said, that intellectual property was all signed over. So the credit was given to Kmart. So no one even really knows the maker. He does, but the public will never. And he said that guy made a pretty penny because he signed over the actual creative rights, which doesn't happen too often.
Not anymore, especially.
Not anymore. So anywho. So just really enjoyed that and loved working with people. I had a lot of experience working with people in a church context. And so developing programs and developing systems for the church for people to submit forms and get plugged in, and all of the things businesses do, churches have actually been doing for a long time because the whole goal is to communicate effectively, to say the right things. And so really, quite frankly, that world taught me a whole lot about how to work with people and all that stuff. And so, just really been enjoying it. I love working with our team. I truly believe we have the best team anywhere, and
awesome,
we have an incredible team.
We're blessed.
Incredible talent. So just really, really good talent and people that know exactly what they're doing, and good team of marketers. Good team of media developers.
So I'm kind of interested, because I hear these little stories, tidbits, when we go into meetings together.
They are tidbits.
Sales meetings and so forth, or vision meetings, and I'm kind of interested in a little bit of your past in terms of some of those jobs, like what's the dirty job, right? What are some of those ones that you've kind of picked up along the way that were maybe they were
car
those
part
real
store.
big
Car part store.
I've never heard the story. So
from scratch. And if you know anything about databases, I learned, that was the day I learned to have customer performed database building.
Okay.
Like there's different parts.
Yeah.
Pun intended. There you got zoink. You have all of the web designer needs to ingest the content from the client. Well, I didn't know that. And so I thought, from tops to tails, you're doing it all.
So let me clarify. So you were doing a car parts store website.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a job you picked up. How did you pick up the job, first of all?
Well, it was a friend.
Okay. Yes. This is how everything started back in the day,
right? Friend, and you're hanging out with each other and you're blowing smoke. You're saying, I could do whatever you need.
Right.
Whatever, when really, in fact, you're on your journey towards really understanding web development,
right.
and I'll never do that again. Yeah. Long story short, the website never got finished.
Oh no, one of those. The undeliverables.
And thankfully, it actually wasn't because the website, we had done enough. I had finally learned there were kind of early onset API systems back then.
Yeah.
They were really more like CSV uploads. Yeah, so you can ask the vendor, hey,
export CSV, import.
Could you send me your database CSV?
Yep.
If you have hyperlinks to the images, I can ingest that and do something with it.
Sure.
So it really made you understand the power of databasing and getting the right information through. And so that was a disaster.
That's awesome.
Before I got into real estate in the level we're doing now, I was like, why don't I get into real estate or something? And so I was trying to do a for sale by owner cheat kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I would provide all the media and build you a listing.
Yeah.
And you pay me a listing fee, and then I get a broker to oversee the whole operation and or something like that. Anyways, that was a disaster. Fun.
There's like a multi-million-dollar idea that's actually doing that. They list for homeowners.
Really?
I don't remember the name of it.
Isn't it called forsalebyowner.com?
There's something
something like that.
There's several of them, I think. But so you had that, but you were probably 10,
and one of these
10 years
days,
too early.
We're gonna play that video tour.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I still got it. It's bad. It's bad.
Oh, you did your first
really
video
bad.
tour.
Yeah. Because I was trying to get real estate agents to understand how I could develop media for them. Just give me a shot. Back then it's always like, hey, just trust me with this one.
It's like that first thing you do is just awful when you look back at it. I mean, that website I was talking to you about earlier, I had those little animated GIFs as menu items, little.
No, you didn't have the flying airplane banner. Remember that?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I remember learning that. I was like, hey, look at this. And it's just this airplane
flies through, makes the banner in.
On the top.
So cheesy.
Or changing the mouse icon.
Oh yeah.
You're just
Like
yeah,
when I mouse over, it mouses over
it's
to
like,
a hand.
who cares? And which is a kind of a thing to talk about is the idea of, whenever you kind of transition when you're in hustler to making something valuable,
Yeah.
and you learn quick, that's not really valuable to an owner. Like
Right.
changing the mouse icon or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's those technicalities you can get hung up on and spend a lot of time and effort on that ultimately have no value to the real marketability or overall value proposition that you're trying to convey.
Sure.
Yeah. And you start learning that as you go. What are the real things to invest in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a disaster. I remember doing a video for my sister's. It was great heart. I had such a good heart.
Yeah.
But which actually both her and my brother-in-law work with Zia now, but and they're still missionaries, but they were trying to raise money to go to India, and so I was like, let me get you this really cool intro, and so I found a templated intro that like showed things like waving and like did a reveal of their name and things like that. And I look back but you got to start somewhere, right?
You do.
You really do. And I know that like that sounds like I'm mocking those who are beginning their journey, but really it's an encouragement. Like you got to walk through that.
Yeah.
You need to be able to get a little embarrassed of your work that you've done before. I can even recall, like, me and Brittany still laugh about it, like our first 3 sessions of photography.
Yeah.
Well, because it's when Lightroom came out. It was right when Lightroom came out. I remember bumping up that saturation, and like the greens are all green and like people's eyes are like really blue. You're like, look at this eye picture, And again, it's one of those things where you learn what's trendy and you learn what's timeless.
Yeah.
And I think all of those lessons you gotta walk through.
Absolutely.
In order to develop good media and actually to go with the times on marketing.
And that's, I mean, I think that conveys a great point, because learning to laugh at yourself, learning to just know that you can do things and it doesn't have to be perfect. And, you do your best. You always do your best. But like if a client comes back and says, hey, I don't like this, there might be a reason why. Like, and that's okay. Like that's, and sometimes, I mean, they always say the customer is always right. That's not the case. There's lots of times the customer can jack a really good design. I mean, in a heartbeat, they hijack it, and it's just the next thing you know.
Should we go there right now?
Oh, it's we won't go deep. We can't go.
Oh my gosh,
that's a whole episode.
I kind of want to go there. Do we? We don't want to kibosh this podcast first round.
We'll go there though. we will. Yeah. So, but that's one of those things, right? But at the same time, knowing that you can have feedback from a client and try to listen to what they really are saying. I know that's one of the lessons I've really learned over the years is most often what they're saying is not really what they mean or what they're trying to communicate to you. And that's such an important part of becoming a real value in this space is learning how to communicate. And one of those things you have to do is communicate with your client. And if you can't communicate with your client, you can't communicate for your client. So, that's a really important a part of this. And some of that is taking like, well, I need to talk to you about why we made these decisions, right? Because then you're communicating the value of the design decisions you made or something like that.
Yep.
And if you can't justify those, then you probably didn't, do a good job of designing that in that sense, right?
Yep.
So if they're coming back to you, it might be legitimate.
Yeah.
Don't disregard it and feel bad because you're a creative, that your work just got.
Yeah. And that's something we do. I mean, I hate to keep plugging Zia, but it's true. And we believe in what we do here is that, we'll tell our clients, we are creatives and we do our best with what we do, but we also we don't know your business in certain ways that you do.
Yeah. And
there's going to be moments when, maybe we plug in an image on a website for a plumber and that's not what they do, and that's not who they are. But now it's your turn. So look at your early years of website building, minus any pending lawsuits. Let's look back and see.
Keep those out.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I've never had one of those. That's
Right.
a good thing.
What is one of those? Man, glad I went through it, but never again.
I'd say the first thing that comes to mind is a website I did that I actually spent a lot of time on the design, and it was a website for kids, music, a person that would come and tutor them in music.
Oh yeah,
at their house though.
Yeah.
So it was cool, and it connected these musicians to these kids.
How long ago was that?
Oh, this probably was 20 years ago.
That was way ahead of the curve on those things.
Yeah, and so I made this beautiful design of the site that really catered to like that mom that was looking for that, and so it was very kid friendly. And I had communicated with one of the senior people in the organization, and I was told that that was the person I needed to communicate with. And I went on with this whole thing, paid a developer on the back end to develop the whole thing for the code, because it was a very extensive design, and it needed. It wasn't a normal like boxy website. It literally had lots of curves, and it was just really, really cool. But I paid that all out, did all that stuff, and come to find out, we get this. I get to this point, and he goes and presents it to the actual CEO of the organization, and they put a kibosh on it. Scrapped the whole thing, and just lost thousands of dollars on this.
Did you ever get
development? Paid? No, never got paid. So what I learned in that lesson at that time was like, know who you're dealing with. Number one, make sure you get agreements up front with people. Mm-hmm. It just helps with relationships. It helps set expectations. Yep. So important, right? And it's really a way you value your client, because you need to know who at the end of the day is writing their name on the check. Right. Because that is your client. It doesn't matter if they tell you an executive is the one that's in charge of the project. Yeah. At the end of the day, the person who signs the check is the one that's in charge of the project. Yeah. And so learning that lesson was a tough one. But
so what was your initial, we kind of skipped that part. But what was your kind of quick, 5-minute journey up to where you're at now as far as media marketing, that world?
Yeah. So I started with just an interest back in the day. My aunt was heavy into marketing, so I picked up a Corel Draw. That was the program I started with.
That was free back then, right?
No, it was a paid program. Corel Draw, Corel Photo Paint were the two that I think it was called Photo Paint. Were the two programs I started with graphic design and doing little logos here and there or photo edits and stuff like that. Then I kind of worked into some websites, like I said early on. Because it was just developing. This is like the day that everything was in dial-up, and
dial-up.
Wish I would have grabbed like a lot of .com domains back then, because I would be a very wealthy man. But
we all have
didn't have that foresight.
Bought that .com.
Yeah. Wish I could. But yeah, so it just started development like that. Was spending a lot of time doing that kind of stuff. Was getting hired, kind of by different people. My dad was running a pretty successful business at that time too, so he was hiring me for a lot of things. So that was kind of my world, was just everything and anything. Right. I was doing some video editing for 3D animations, very early on 3D animations of like building designs and things like that. So that's where I started getting my video editing world stamp, if you will.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, very early on.
Toy Story. Like that era of 3D modeling and rendering?
So we were using 3D Studio Max, and we were one of the, I would say, like in a lot of ways, one of the first companies that were doing that. This was way before even a lot of the big companies were doing.
You're all Steve Jobs is my uncle. Dun, dun, dun.
Not quite. My dad did meet Steve Jobs one day, but
no, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
Really?
Yeah. Wow.
So,
one of those cool little stories. But
yeah, that is a cool story.
Yeah, but yeah, so those were those.
Did he
things.
like touch him and bless him? I'm just
You
curious.
wish, right?
Just like,
Hey,
could you just
talking about a marketing genius, right? You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about him being like a product genius. That really wasn't his genius. He was a marketing.
He was a
genius.
marketing genius.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, so that was kind of the world, and you know, it just spiraled. So there, you end up talking to people in, you know, a party or something, and they have this business and they need a website, or you know, they need a photo shoot of their products. You know,
For me, it's always at a barbecue.
Oh yeah, barbecues.
Always at a freaking barbecue.
Birthday parties for family members.
For kids,
you know, kids' birthday
kids are
parties.
screaming, and you're like, you're
talking.
I can rank you on Google or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a rabbit hole, the SEO rabbit hole.
SEO rabbit hole.
Yeah,
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that both of us have like this extensive breadth of skills that we kind of went down. Where I think a lot of some people like pigeonhole like into things, but it's kind of defines the media, I think, too, in the sense that we're an A to Z marketing company rather than just like this focused marketing company.
True.
And that's what's given us I think an edge and a ability to give just tremendous value in small community.
Yeah, and I think just so our listeners can understand what we mean by A to Z or 360 degree. So we not only, or companies like ours, I should say, because there's others out there, is we develop all the media from scripting to delivery, and that could be scripting a TV spot. It could be scripting a radio spot. It could be really from onset dreaming, like idea.
Consulting.
To delivery of
consulting vision
product
of anything,
and then marketing it. So putting it where people will see it.
Yeah,
you know, and I think, you know, and we're gonna wrap back around to your story really quick, but I think that's a good segue. A little part of my story is that you could do a lot of cool things.
Yeah,
like you can be a really good videographer.
Yeah,
but you don't have the team.
That's right.
In order to tell people that you're a good videographer.
Yeah, absolutely.
You may be very talented and very gifted by God to be able to tell stories visually. Like that's a gift, and I get it. The other side of that story that I began to learn thankfully early was that the growth of that needs marketing in order for people to know what it is.
Right. Yeah, you hate seeing when you develop a piece that's a great piece for somebody, a media, you know, piece, and then there's no views.
Oh yeah,
right?
Oh yeah. And we're talking high level, high quality stuff.
Yeah.
The film festivals that I'll go to.
Yeah.
I'll meet these directors, and these directors will be like, oh my gosh, like no one has seen my work before, and they'll show me.
Fantastic work, yeah.
Incredible narrative, incredible story, incredible quality, incredible lighting. Everything's perfect technically.
Yeah.
But they do not know how to share the message. They don't know how to tell anyone about it. They don't know what to do. And it crushes me.
Yeah.
Because I remember being in that position and knowing what, you know, whatever. But it can be super disappointing.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons we started this podcast as well, is we've run into this challenge where it's disappointing, again, not from our standpoint, but this almost like hurts your heart, is seeing business owner after business owner open a venue, and they have this field of dreams type of mentality. If you build it, they'll come type of thought, and it's just not true, right?
Yeah.
And what's sad about that is a lot of times people invest their entire life savings, into this little shoebox store that they set up for whatever dream that they had, and they don't. And
then they choose
they
to
have
sell
no budget.
shoeboxes.
Well, right. Well, then they have no budget like for marketing, no budget for advertising, and they're just they're a sinking ship because they have no roadways to their business.
Yeah.
And it's like building a building in the middle of nowhere. Well, sorry, the guys don't just come out of the fields. It's just just not how it works in real life. And so that challenge is such a hurtful thing.
And I'm hear me out. Like I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel bad for those people that like like really vested, but because like it's almost a nervous laughter
Right,
based
yeah.
off of seeing these things happen and take place. And still, we can walk out of this building and 9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
they're like, I'm going to put everything, my heart and soul. And they do. They put their heart and soul,
Yeah.
money, savings. And then they don't advertise, or they don't market, or they don't even know who their target customers.
Yeah.
And it does crush me.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to your story. So Corel Draw, pulling was that before Photoshop?
Pre-Photoshop, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they became competitors and, switched over to Photoshop eventually, and stuff like that.
That was did Adobe start with Illustrator first, right? They started as a vector company.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to remember because
yeah.
I feel like they were both there kind of at the same time. Because Corel Draw was the vector and Corel Paint was the photo paint, like so that's Photoshop versus Corel Illustrator.
Yeah.
And so
teach me, wise one, of all of the old software ways.
Yeah, so it's funny looking back.
Dude, I love
those designs.
Old computers.
Is so bad.
Dude, I love old computers. Sometimes I just want to like pull up an old computer and play like Math Munchers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you remember Math Munchers?
No, I didn't.
You're a little older than me.
Yeah,
it was a game, and it was this Smashing Mouth. I'm trying to look at some of our staff here if they remember it, but you would go in there and it was like, and like,
did you have to like
2 + 2 is 4? It's like snap. And then it's like 3 + 3 is 6. It's super fun. That and Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail, dude. That was
always died of dysentery every time.
But all I did in that, then all I cared about in that game was hunting. That was like the epic thing that all I ever wanted to do was hunt. I just buy ammunition. I didn't care if my family died in Oregon Trail. That was not my purpose. It was to hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know.
that's the salesman in me.
And it's
I don't know.
well, then it was always like it. Then like the pixels would turn purple. That's the way you would know. Like your people died,
Yeah.
and it was just like dysentery again. I don't know. I need to. Man, it'd be cool to talk to those old developers of that game.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's choose a trail death.
Yes.
Dysentery. It'll make these youngins question.
And you could not make it through the Oregon Trail without losing like at least half your family. You had to birth as many as possible
young
along
Timmy
the
just
way.
couldn't.
Sad.
So.
Wow.
We're gonna get canceled really fast.
Yeah.
Canceled, and we're dating ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Corel Draw. Then you really start diving into. You share with us the first websites and kind of the disasters there. Where'd you really make a turn towards consulting and really looking at the big picture?
I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, like I'm trying to put a timestamp on that, and I don't know that I can tell you. I think I've always been a big picture thinker. Someone that likes to think more visionary.
Right.
And I think actually more in my latter years, I've realized that that's really where my value lies for a client, and how I can help them see something more than just that. And I think it's really come with having a great team that can accomplish all the other things that I was doing before. I think I was a little bit in the rat race before of chasing my own tail, like going, getting a client, doing the business, coming back, getting, client. And so there was always this circular thing.
Is the rat race when he's on the wheel, or does that mean he's in the maze and he's just starting back from where he started? How does that analogy work out?
Yeah, I feel like it's the wheel. That's what it feels like to me. It's on the wheel that's not going anywhere. But you're kind of,
because I get the dog can't catch its own tail thing because they're just spinning and they just can't get there.
Yeah.
But so I love the ridiculous analogies that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
But I think where I see a lot of your strength on the outside looking in is because you handle a lot of our industrial accounts and big picture accounts and stuff like that, is I think you understand just the level of intentionality that something needs in order for it to be successful.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think what I've seen from you is this level of integrity in the sense of at the end of the day, the advice you give to a client really matters
Yeah.
to their success or not. So
Right.
if they don't need something for that campaign,
Right.
if it's not going to lead to success, then why do it?
Yeah. And I think that's really what, it's like I try to put myself really in their shoes with with my expertise. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what would I do if I were them in their, in their business, yet with knowing what I know about marketing and advertising? And especially at the stage that they're at too, because there's different stages, right? There's stages where you have the money and capital to invest a lot more, and there's stages where you don't.
Yeah.
And so, thinking in those terms and not overselling somebody, and I think that brings value, and we've seen that over and over where our client will give us more business and more business, or another side hustle that they have going on, or whatever, because we do what's right for them at that time in their business. And we genuinely try to do that as much as possible. And when you do that, I think, one, it gains the trust of your client. And two, it allows you to be effective for your client. Because if they're dropping $2,000 a month with you, say, and really they only have 500 to spend, if that's really their budget, that's worthwhile for them. That $1,500 is not going to feel like it's going anywhere valuable. Because it's just hurting them,
Hurting them. And there's something to be said. And I did this in an explainer. I was building a budget for a large company, and I was needing to give a rationale for the budget I set. And really, at the end of the day, I was talking to them about felt needs. So there's subjective ideas that business owners have. It's that feeling that a business owner, especially in a small business, small town, where you go, what am I doing? And what am I doing with my money? And how am I spending it wisely?
Right.
And it's not a bottom line thing for them. Sometimes it's something just deep inside that they have a felt need that we're going to encourage business owners in this podcast to let go some of those limiting factors.
Right.
But I also told them, yeah, this is what we're doing. But at the end of the day, it's your spend. And I can only show you what I believe to be true and the best thing for you. But we can't go 6 months down the road and you say, let's pull back, because we're already knee deep.
Right.
And so if you have a felt need right now that says, let's lower it, let's do that now and work with that.
Yeah.
Because it's no use for me to sell you on a higher marketing budget if you don't believe in it.
Right.
Let's believe in it together.
You have to believe in it. Yeah, absolutely.
And let's walk.
And sometimes that if you can take that first step with them and they see results, then they can move into those next steps, and that really helps them believe more and more in what's possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what do you think is one of those big ideas that is going to be that you're most passionate about as we unlock this podcast for future episodes? Stuff that we do, people that we have. What are you wanting to communicate?
Well, I mean, I think, calling this Main Street Exchange, kind of going back to that angle, right? I think the value that marketing is an exchange. And, and one of the things that you and I have talked about so much is if a small business owner is watching this or listening to this, if they can know that, one, we want to exchange value with them. So we want them, if they give their time to this podcast, that they're going to walk away with something that maybe helps their business grow, helps their helps them understand something about their business. And I think, what we're going to talk about pitfalls, we're going to talk about wins, we're going to talk about, all sorts of things, marketing related, but really getting into some of that mindsets. And like you said, limiting mindsets, limiting factors. What are some of those? What are some of those things that we've seen in really successful business owners? And we're going to have some of them on with us.
Yeah, we are going to be having guests for sure, and from across the country. And so, stay tuned for a lot of those guests coming up, and all that we're going to be sharing here. As long as we have this going, and so we're excited for it. And I would say for me, I'm pumped about being able to really convey to a lot of people that you're not alone.
Yes,
you're,
absolutely. That's
you're not
great.
alone. You
Great
may
point.
feel like, but there's something that as we build this community, um, something you can give us as we give some insight to you. And so as we open things up for commenting and all that, we're going to pop in there and answer some of those questions
Yeah.
and really point you in directions that are helpful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's what I'm most looking forward to. And if you even have some topics or things you would love to hear about, or for us to talk about, please tell us. We want to know what those are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, I probably should be talking to that camera right there. I know why people do that now.
Yeah,
Now, like
yeah.
when newscasters are like, "Oh, which one is it?" This one. But yeah, I think if anything, if you can stick around with us, we're gonna really unpack some of these things and have a good time.
Yeah.
We really don't want a formal, stale podcast. We want to really unpack stories and get to the heart of what we're doing and have fun doing it and joke around. Hopefully not get canceled, but maybe ride the line, but have a good time with you as we're diving into this. And so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah. It's going to be great. I'm excited about this. And like we said, this is something we've been planning for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So to bring that value to some people of the things we've learned over the years. And that's what I'm hoping we can do through this.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
on
guys.
episode 2.